Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into this because today we are unpacking something truly brilliant. We're looking at Surah 74 Al-Muddaththir. Now, it's pretty easy to look at an ancient text and expect just some simple list of do's and don'ts. But as Surah 74 Al-Muddaththir reveals, it's actually a high-stakes, deeply psychological blueprint of human behavior. It maps out the exact architecture of how we make choices, how we justify them, and the ultimate realities those choices create. So if you've ever wondered why people double down on denial, or how our internal compass either guides us or completely traps us, you're going to love this breakdown. Here's our roadmap for today. We're looking at 5 steps: the command to stand up, the psychology of concealment, the system of consequence, the 4 fatal choices, and finally, the ultimate choice. All right, section 1, the command to stand up, the baseline activation. Right out of the gate, Surah 74 Al-Muddaththir establishes that true consciousness isn't passive. Listen to this. Stand, then warn, and your Lord, magnify, and your garments, purify. In the Arabic, these commands are delivered in the staccato, rapid-fire sequence. It's punchy, it's incredibly direct. The surah structures this as an operational charge, not just a casual suggestion. Before any actual message is even delivered, it demands an immediate, functional realignment. Basically, you have to be ready to move. The crucial key here is the Arabic root word used for stand, QWM. Think of this like a core puzzle piece for understanding the whole surah. This root doesn't just mean getting up off the floor. It denotes an active, upright, fully operational standing. It directly challenges our natural human desire to just stay cloaked in passive comfort. The surah is addressing someone wrapped up, literally telling them to break out of that cozy state and actively engage with reality. You absolutely cannot be a passive observer in this framework. And this sets up the core structural polarity of Surah 74 Al-Muddaththir. On one side, you have the command to magnify reality, purifying your output and aligning with the Lord. On the exact opposite side, you have magnifying the self, arrogance, ego, and self-inflation. This is the ultimate moral fork in the road. You are either making absolute reality bigger or you're making yourself bigger. Which takes us to section 2, the psychology of concealment, the archetype of denial. So what happens when someone chooses to magnify themselves? To understand this, we need to redefine a word you've probably heard before, KFR. It's often just translated as disbelief, but Surah 74 Al-Muddaththir presents KFR as an active covering over or concealment. It is not some passive state of ignorance where a person just doesn't know any better. Actually, concealment is a weaponized intellectual choice. It's a highly calculated process that someone uses to protect their wealth, their social stature, and their ego. So, how does this denial actually play out? The surah walks us through it step by step. First, you have cognition and calculation. The person reflects, they measure, and they manipulate the data to fit their own worldview. Step 2 is physical rejection. The surah literally describes them looking, frowning, and scowling. Step 3 is an arrogant withdrawal, basically turning their back on the truth. And finally, step 4 is verbal dismissal, where they casually write the truth off as just human speech or transmitted magic. We're watching the active process of psychological denial happen in real time. And honestly, it is chillingly relatable even today. That brings us to section 3, the system of consequence, the unavoidable matrix. Because this calculated, arrogant denial doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It triggers a massive systemic reaction. Surah 74 Al-Muddaththir introduces this consequence as Saqar. This is a systemic consequence state that strips away all artificial human coverings. It does not spare, and it does not leave. Think of it as this absolute, objective reality that burns away every single layer of prestige and every intellectual excuse the denier worked so incredibly hard to calculate and protect. It leaves absolutely nothing hidden. And right after describing this intense reality, the surah drops a highly specific data point about the guardrails of Saqar, the number 19. Just 19. Now, why on earth would the surah suddenly throw a specific number right into the middle of this existential warning? Well, it tells us exactly why, explicitly self-declaring this number as a fitna. A fitna is a functional sorting test. It's designed to sift human intent and reveal a person's underlying disposition. It is not some random math equation you have to blindly accept, nor is it something that requires this elaborate numerological defense. This exact same data point, the number 19, acts as a separator. If your consciousness is already oriented toward verification and truth, this data point produces increased certainty and security. But if you're already oriented toward concealment and arrogance, that exact same piece of information produces dismissive confusion and mockery. They'll ask, what did Allah mean by this? See, the test sorts people based entirely on their prior internal orientation.
Moving right along to Section 4, the 4 fatal choices, the anatomy of failure. So how does someone actually end up trapped in that ultimate consequences state of Saqar? The Surah gives us this fascinating dialogue where the inhabitants of Saqar provide a 4-part self-diagnosis. I want you to really deeply reflect on your own daily life and social footprint as we unpack this. Number 1, an absence of a sustained, attentive connection to ultimate reality. Number 2, a failure to feed and functionally support the destitute. Number 3, an active immersion in idle, distracting discourse. And number 4, the outright denial of the accountability framework. It's a profound sequence. Notice how a severed vertical connection to reality inevitably leads to horizontal social neglect and cruelty, which is then numbed by constant, idle distraction.
Surah 74 Al-Muddaththir puts it directly. They say, we were not among those maintaining connection, and we used to wade in with those who wade until certainty came to us. That anchors the whole idea perfectly. Ultimate failure stems from your lived, daily choices. It's about your social responsibility, what media you consume, and who you wade in with. It's a systemic breakdown of character, not just missing a few rituals.
Finally, Section 5, the ultimate choice, the will to remember.
This brings the entire cause and effect arc full circle, right back to your own agency. Surah 74 Al-Muddaththir beautifully and self-referentially closes by calling itself a tadhkirah, a reminder. But it's a catalyst that refuses to be passive. It can only be received through continuously willed, conscious alignment. You have to actively choose to remember. It requires your volition to uptake, reversing that toxic covering up of denial we talked about earlier. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. The surah has laid out the anatomy of human choice. You've seen the mechanics of denial and the stark reality of consequence. So, will you choose the active posture of standing upright, magnifying absolute reality? Or will you calculate your own concealment, just magnifying yourself? The choice is entirely up to you. Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and keep seeking the truth.